One question I see and hear a lot with retirees like yourself is, how do I compare to everyone else? How does my net worth, my retirement savings, the income I'm expecting compare to others? Especially when people are getting close to retirement, they just want to know, are they ahead or are they behind? And looking at how you compare to others is just an easy way typically to try to make sense of that in a way. So today I wanted to walk through some real numbers, not averages, as averages can be very misleading when there are large outliers in a data set. Like there is overarchingly with wealth amongst Americans, there is a small percentage who are ultra wealthy that tend to drive up what the averages are. So today we're actually going to be looking at those median numbers, which will tell a much more accurate story in regards to looking at how things are for the average American. And some of these numbers may surprise you. So let's start with net worth. According to a study done by the Federal Reserve towards the end of 2025, the median net worth for households age 65 to 74 is roughly about $410,000. And just to clarify how your net worth is calculated, that's going to include your home, retirement accounts, investments, cash, other real estate you may have, minus any debts that you have. So if someone has a house that's worth $500,000, an investment account worth $100,000, but they owe $200,000 on their home, then their net worth would be $400,000. And here's something else interesting about that as well, is even though the median net worth is around $410,000, the average is actually closer to $1.7 million. Like I said earlier, because wealth is so unevenly distributed in America and a large amount of it sits with a small percentage, it drives that average up. Now let's take a further look and narrow it down to retirement accounts specifically. For Americans age 65 to 74, the median retirement savings is about $200,000. So that's a combination of different accounts like your 401k, IRAs, other retirement accounts, which means half of retirees have less than $200,000 saved for retirement. And many households rely heavily on Social Security to make up that difference. Another statistic that may be surprising to you is in regards to debt in retirement. Roughly half of the households entering retirement are still carrying some form of debt. That might include auto loans, credit card loans, home equity loans, mortgage loans. And historically, retirees more so were entering retirement debt-free, but over the past couple of decades, that has changed a bit. Part of that is cultural, with our culture being very consumption-driven. But another piece of that is just very practical with we're coming off of being in a low interest rate environment for a handful of years. So many of you and many retirees were able to lock in a low interest rate on their home. And looking at the spreadsheet, looking at the financial plan, it doesn't really maybe make sense to be paying off that mortgage with that low interest rate. So it can make sense and feel comfortable, feel okay to carry that into retirement. Some of you, though, still want that peace of mind and are planning on tackling that mortgage and getting it knocked out going into retirement. And I think that's still a great thing cash flow wise. But for a lot of you, it doesn't maybe necessarily make sense because you have that low interest rate. And I've just found that very interesting that a lot of households are entering retirement with debt, whereas that used to not as much be the case. Now let's talk about retirement income. According to Federal Reserve data, the median income for households age 65 and older is roughly about $50,000 to $52,000 per year. And a large portion of that, of course, is coming from Social Security. Social Security remains the primary source of retirement income for many Americans, and for many households, it represents 40 to 60% of their retirement income. And despite headlines about Social Security running out, the reality is, even if the trust fund were depleted in the future, payroll taxes would still fund the majority of the benefits. Of course, who knows what exactly that will look like, but highly doubt that it is going to fully disappear. So it's very likely that Social Security will remain a significant component of retirement income for decades to come. And now, whenever we look at statistics like this, it's important to remember something. These numbers are benchmarks, not necessarily goals. At the beginning of the video, I touched on it is easier to try to figure out if you're on track by comparing yourself to others. But I actually find that working with retirees, helping them plan to make that transition into retirement, it doesn't really matter if you're doing better than Joe and Sue next door if you aren't able to live the lifestyle that you're wanting to live and able to to accomplish the goals that you're wanting to live for your life. So when talking through all these metrics, it maybe is helpful, but you want to make sure that you come back to what are your goals? What life are you specifically wanting to live? And how do you make sure that your assets, your plan are going to serve you best, give you the life you want to live, help you to live with purpose, help you to serve God well and to be generous to others? And because everyone's situation is different, your retirement outcome is going to depend on your specific spending needs, whether your home is paid off like we were talking about before, whether you have a pension or not, your health, so like your longevity, maybe what your healthcare costs are, your lifestyle goals, and your investment strategy. And not trying to beat a dead horse here, but like I just said, you don't have to beat everyone else. You just need your plan to work. And for many of the families that I'm working with, the real focus is being able to live generously, being able to be wise with what God has entrusted to you, and using retirement years intentionally to live a joyful, purposeful life. So instead of asking, am I ahead of this person or everyone else, a better question might be, do I have enough to live the life that God is calling me to live? If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe for more retirement planning content coming from a biblical perspective. And if you personally would like to see if you're on track for retirement, make sure to go to our website, click on the link to take the quick 2-minute retirement quiz to see if you're on track for retirement. And I hope to see you here in the next video. Take care.